Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of our Sunday reading reflections. This week we are entering into the 19th week of Ordinary Time. So I'm here. My name is Brendan. I am the youth minister at St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church, and we're going to look at the readings. We're back into John chapter 6, and we are getting further and further into the Bread of Life discourse. And what the Bread of Life discourse is, it's essentially Jesus teaching us about what and who the Eucharist is. And here we have the continuation of what we had last week. So if you remember from last week, Jesus is starting to speak about this bread of life and how he is going to be giving us the bread of life, and those who come to him will be satisfied. And now we're starting off this week where people are saying, how can he say I am the bread of life that came down to heaven? Don't we know his father? His father's Joseph and his mother's Mary. Like, don't we know his family? Like, he grew up with us. He's just some guy that lives down the street. And this is where they're having trouble. They're trying to figure out why, or how rather, this man who's claiming to be the bread of life, claiming to be coming from God, coming from heaven, how can he be this person if they know that he's the son of Joseph and that they know his mother? And this is very hard for them to comprehend. And then Jesus recognizes this and he tells them to stop mumbling and that no one can come to him unless the Father sends them. And then he continues further because he's like, okay, not only am I from heaven, but he speaks about how their ancestors ate in the manna, and coming from the manna that they ate, but they eventually did die. And now he's saying how this is the bread that he's talking about. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, and those that eat of it will not die. And not only that, he goes on to say, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever, and the bread that I give will be the flesh of the life, my flesh for the life of the world. So not only is he saying he is the bread of life, he is saying that bread is his flesh. And we will be going further and deeper into this because we have a couple more weeks of the bread life discourse. But this week's reading is ending off with Jesus dropping that big thing there, saying that the bread of life, the bread from heaven, is his flesh. And as we hear it every single Mass, we hear the words, this is my flesh, this is my blood. And when we are during the liturgy of the Eucharist, at that point, the bread and wine become the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. And as we delve deeper into this bread of life discourse, we will understand ever more deeply why this is the case, why Jesus means the Eucharist is literally his flesh, not just figuratively, but literally. We'll see more in the upcoming weeks. I don't want to get into too much depth here, but in upcoming weeks we'll understand more as to why this is the case. But right now, let's just look at this as, Jesus is saying, I'm not just some average guy. I come from heaven. I am the bread of life, and you who eat my flesh will receive that life. And he goes deeper. But before I go and leave for today, I do want to quickly look back at the first reading, which is a reading from the first book of Kings, and it's talking about Elijah. And Elijah, he's overwhelmed, and he decides to go lie down, and really, he decides to go lie down and just die. He's like, Lord, this is just too much for me. So he went to go sleep, but he was awakened by an angel, and the angel told him to get up and eat. And then the angel comes another time and tells him to take some bread and eat of it. And this bread was enough for him to go on a 40-day journey to the mountain of the Lord. And what I find interesting about this is that Elijah was completely overwhelmed. And really what God let him do was sleep and eat. And this is really important just to remember that when we get overwhelmed, when we feel like there's too much going on, too much for us to handle, not only do we need to remember to keep God in our life, to remember to pray, but we need to remember to take care of ourselves, to take that time to sleep, take that time to eat the food that we need. This food that God provided Elijah was miraculous food. It provided enough food for him to go on a 40-day journey. But we need to remember to have our daily bread, to eat the food that we need to go on with the day, to take the rest that we need. No, life can get overwhelming, and just to remember that, to remember even the prophets struggled with this is a really good thing too, because when we realize that we are not alone in this, we're God's holy people throughout the centuries, needed to rely on God, needed to rely solely on God because they knew they couldn't do it themselves. It's so helpful to remember that because we don't have to do anything ourselves. We can rely on God, turn to Jesus, ask Him to take over. Not in the sense of like Jesus take the wheel kind of thing, but help us work through with Him what we need to do. And we need to learn how to rely on Jesus. And when we learn to rely on Jesus, just as Elijah learned how to rely on God, that's when we can do great things. Elijah was able to travel 40 days and 40 nights off of that little bit of food. We can, when we rely on Jesus, do so much with so little. Just like the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, it fed so many people. All we need to do is come and ask Jesus for His help, and He will provide, because He is the bread of life that comes down from heaven. And when we go to Him, we receive that eternal life. So until next week, when we delve even deeper into the bread of life discourse, when we delve ever deeper into the Eucharist, I want to leave you with that reminder. Just remember to turn to Christ. Remember that when things get tough, turning to God is always the best thing to do. So until then, I want to wish you a really great week. Please continue praying for me as I am praying for you. God bless. Bye.